A ban on TikTok. The Restrict Act was put together as an issue of national security to protect the people's data. But when we dig into the finer details of this story, the so-called protection seems to be another mirage for control. Now, before I start digging, let's also back up a bit and remember that this isn't the first time we've been talking about protecting people's data. Not just 4 years ago, we had Mark Zuckerberg brought before Congress to talk about the data that was sold to Cambridge Analytica. And what became of that? Absolutely nothing. So let's not forget how easy it is for any company or entity such as China to just buy the data they want rather than coming up with some elaborate plan to create a company like TikTok to collect that data for them. The US government has shown multiple times that they don't care about your data. They don't care if you've been spied on. They just want to have the ability to monopolize it. And many people try to call us a conspiracy, saying that the US has never tried to control the narrative. They haven't paid social media companies. Clearly, this is not the case. And the biggest donors to congressmen and women are also, of course, the people that own most of the mainstream media companies as well, so they also play their role.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
Without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use this platform to push their own personal lives and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Clearly, just a coincidence, am I right? And I'm not trying to be overly dismissive of the criticisms of social media. Too much time on social media can be bad for you unless you're consuming my content. Then it's perfectly fine. But clearly, this is not the actual issue. We even had Facebook come out and admit that they were trying to target underage kids as a new untapped user base. The government acted like they cared, and then they did nothing. And I'm sure this has nothing to do with the fact that many of our Congress members are shareholders of Facebook, who is also doing most of the funding to get TikTok banned, which of course has now led to the Restrict bill, which doesn't seem to be only focused on TikTok. And this is the big thing that I think a lot of people are missing. And we're gonna talk about that in just a moment, but I also want to cover what actually happened at this congressional hearing. There was very little discussion about the actual data fears when it comes to TikTok. And the whole entire 5-hour congressional hearing, there were 2 points to me that actually were legitimate. The first being that the CEO was asked if any of the Chinese engineers would have backdoor access to the data. But we've also already seen that this was true for Facebook and Twitter as well. Now, the second was a little bit more serious, but remember, this is could and if. These are potentialities. These aren't things that have already happened. But it was asked if the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, did ask for the data, would TikTok be obligated to give it to them since the parent company ByteDance is in China and therefore basically owned by the CCP? And this question does have precedence. China has laws that force companies to hand over their data whether or not the data is actually focused on Chinese citizens or international. This law was put in place after the US actually put in similar laws as well. And to address this, the CEO said that TikTok is building all their physical servers in Texas, which would put the data under US law and therefore outside of China's reach. And since there's so much fear around national security, surely when I read through this Restrict bill, I'm gonna see that the sole objective is to make sure to protect Americans' data. Not only does that not seem to be the main purpose of this bill, but it's actually a lot more terrifying. See, the first thing that this bill does is basically authorize a Secretary of Communication to review and prohibit certain transactions between persons in the United States and foreign advisories and for other purposes. You see, this doesn't just target TikTok, it targets any form of communication you might undergo. And if they deem it to be destructive or harmful to others, you could be censored immediately. And who gets to make all these decisions? Not anyone that the people elect, but someone that the president puts in that position of power. Is this starting to sound familiar? Because this is exactly what Biden tried to previously pitch as a disinformation governance board, which was pretty much directly out of the Orwellian novel 1984, which involved creating a ministry of truth. Now, when this was first pitched, it was dropped faster than mainstream media's viewership because of all the backlash it received. But this time there's been so much fear-mongering about TikTok that the people and both parties seem unified on putting this through. And to be absolutely clear, this would allow the government to censor or ban anything they deem inappropriate in secret without your notification. It allows them to go through your messages, your emails, to track what you're doing on your phone, any type of software software or hardware that connects to the internet. If you have a Wi-Fi thermostat, they're gonna know what temperature you like to fall asleep at. Now, let's say you're pretty clever and you think you can get around this by using a VPN. Well, guess what? You're in for jail time and a minimum of a $250,000 fine. If they can prove that you did it intentionally, yeah, go ahead and bump that up to $1 million. Now, of course, that seems pretty unreasonable because how are you gonna fine 1 million 10-year-olds who wanted to use TikTok? Yeah, good luck. The point is that this bill is actually pretty dangerous. And even if you're for the ban of TikTok, this is not the way to do it. And let me be clear, even though the White House is backing this, even though it seems like both political parties are backing this, I don't believe that they all have the intention of controlling the people. The path to hell is led with good intentions. And I think a lot of these well-meaning congressmen and women are following this blindly, just thinking that it will be good in the short term, not thinking about the long-term implications of what they are enacting. Or they're looking at the value of their meta stock saying, if I ban TikTok, I can make a lot more money. But today there was some voices of reason, as Senator Rand Paul blocked the bid to ban Chinese-owned TikTok. And in my opinion, some of these comments deserve a round of applause. If Republicans want to continuously lose elections for a generation, they should pass this bill to ban TikTok, a social media app used by 150 million people, primarily young Americans. Do we really want to emulate Chinese speech bans? We're going to just be like China and ban speech we're afraid of? And luckily, Rand Paul is not the only Congress member to actually speak out about this bill, although he was the most adamant and had, in my opinion, the best rebuttal. And regardless of all those politics, I hope that all of this brings a more nuanced conversation about our free speech and about social media in general. Because most of the issues that people are addressing TikTok with can be addressed to all the social media platforms. And on top of that, we need to stop using these social media platforms as scapegoats for everything that we think is wrong with society, because it simply is not true. As a society, we are long overdue for taking responsibility for the overuse of social media. All this time spent on blaming algorithms when the algorithms are built to show you what you already watch. If you only watch garbage, you're only gonna see garbage. But if you seek out information, if you use social media as a tool to communicate with others, as a tool to learn, it can be wildly successful. And at the end of the day, social media does far more good than it does bad. So hopefully I've done a good job of catching you up on what the Restrict Bill is, what it actually does, and its ramifications. So reach out to your local representative and let them know that if this bill goes through, they're gonna need to start filling out some job applications because they work for us, not the other way around.